"You're useful, Mark," Danielle said, standing in our entryway with her coat still on and her cheeks flushed from the cold. "But you're not my partner. You're the steady base that makes everything else possible, so don't act like you get a vote." Hey friends, please like this video and leave a comment with your impressions. This will be a great help. Thank you. We never tire of reminding you, it's all thanks to you. The hallway light in our building buzzed like it always did. Pittsburgh winters have a way of making everything sound sharper. The door latch, the radiator, the distant clang of a bus down on Carson. Danielle's words didn't come with a scream. They came with a calm confidence, like she was explaining gravity to someone slow. I didn't yell back. I didn't slam my hand on the wall. I just looked at her and let my brain do what it always does when something goes wrong. I'm a municipal inspector for the city. I spend my days walking job sites, checking permits, comparing what's built to what's approved. I've learned that there are two versions of every story, the one people tell out loud and the one the paperwork shows. I don't get paid to be impressed. I get paid to be accurate. Danielle and I had been together a little over 3 years. We lived in a converted brick building in Pittsburgh's South Side, close enough to the bars that you could hear weekend noise, but far enough that you could still sleep if you kept the windows shut. The building used to be old offices. Now it was apartments with tall ceilings, exposed ductwork, and a lobby that tried hard to look fancy. We were both on the lease. We split rent. We split utilities. We had a shared email for building notices and the tenant portal because it was easier than chasing each other for passwords. That email was meant for boring things like package alerts and maintenance updates. That night, Danielle was dressed like she'd stepped out of a magazine, not over the top, just polished in a way that felt intentional. She worked as an event planner, and she'd been chasing bigger clients for the last year. Corporate launches, charity dinners, high-touch experiences, she called them. She used to plan weddings and office parties. Now she talked like she was running a small empire. When she started moving up, I was proud of her. I meant it. I'd show up to her events early, help carry boxes, tape down cords so nobody tripped. I'd keep my mouth shut and stay out of the way. I liked being the calm person in a room full of nervous people. That part of me fit her world. In the beginning, our routine was simple. I left before 8. She stayed in bed later because her work often ran late. I'd come home to coffee grounds on the counter and a sticky note that said, "Good luck today," or "Call me when you can." We'd eat dinner on the couch and talk about normal stuff. We'd take walks on weekends when the weather wasn't terrible. We'd meet my sister and her husband at a diner in Dormont and laugh about nothing. Danielle could be warm, she could be thoughtful. She remembered birthdays. She brought my mom flowers the first time she met her. She made me feel like my steady, quiet way of living wasn't boring. It was safe, that word again, safe. The change came in layers. First, it was the phone. She stopped leaving it face up on the table. She started taking calls in the bathroom with the fan running, like the steam could hide a voice. She told me it was because clients were private and she needed to protect relationships. I believed her because I wanted to be the supportive partner, not the suspicious one. Then it was the schedule. Danielle's events used to be predictable. You plan, you execute, you go home tired. But she began adding after things, drinks after a site visit, a quick meet after an event, late-night networking that always seemed to end around 1 or 2 in the morning. Pittsburgh has a certain kind of social scene. It's not Los Angeles. It's not New York. It's smaller. People know each other. People talk. You can only reinvent yourself so much before you run into someone who remembers the old you. Danielle wanted reinvention anyway. She got obsessed with appearances in a way that was new, not just dressing well for work, dressing well to buy groceries, wearing heels to walk our dog around the block like she was being watched, posting pictures of cocktails with captions about closing deals when I knew she'd been stressed about money the week before. She started treating our home like a backstage area, a place to reset, not a place to live. She'd come in, drop her bag, stare at herself in the mirror, then leave again. If I asked where she was going, she'd answer without looking at me. "Just a thing," she'd say. "Don't make it weird." I tried to address it early. I wasn't angry. I was worried. One Sunday morning, she was scrolling through her phone while I made eggs. I set the plate down and said, "I miss you. Even when you're here, I feel like you're somewhere else." She laughed softly and said, "Mark, you sound like my dad." That stung more than I expected. "I'm serious," I said. She waved a hand like she was shooing a fly. "This is what it takes. I'm building. You wouldn't understand because your world is rules and checklists." My world is rules and checklists because people get hurt when you ignore them, but I didn't say that. I just nodded and tried again later. It got worse when she started bringing me around her new circle. At first I liked it. I'm not a social butterfly, but I can hold a conversation. I can listen. I can ask questions. I can be polite. Danielle's friends, though, weren't really friends. They were mirrors. They were people who wanted to be seen next to each other. They talked about brands and reach. They talked about restaurants like they were collecting them. They talked about work like it was a stage. And Danielle started acting like my presence lowered her value. It happened in small moments. She'd interrupt me when I spoke. She'd correct harmless details like she needed to prove I was wrong. She'd laugh a little too hard when someone teased me about being the city guy. One night after an event, we were walking back to the car and she said, "You were kind of stiff tonight." "I was fine," I said. She sighed, "You don't know how to blend. You stand there like a hall monitor." That word, hall monitor. I stopped going to some things after that. I told her I was busy, which wasn't even a lie. Work had been heavy, but the truth was I didn't want to be treated like a prop. Danielle didn't seem to care. If anything, she looked relieved. That's when the disrespect turned from passive to direct. She started making comments about money even though I paid my share, and then some when things were tight. She'd say, "You're so comfortable with small," or "You think like a guy who's never been anywhere." I had been places. I had just learned that most places are the same. People want respect, safety, and a little dignity. Danielle didn't want dignity. She wanted an audience. The night she said the line in the entryway, it wasn't out of nowhere. It was the end of a long slide. She'd come home at almost midnight. I was still awake because I had a 7 a.m. inspection, and I couldn't relax. I heard her key in the lock. I heard her laugh quietly at something on her phone before she even stepped inside. When she came in, she smelled like perfume and cold air, and something sweet that wasn't our apartment. I asked, "How was your night?" "Productive," she said. "Where were you?" I asked, keeping it neutral. She took off her gloves slowly, like she wanted me to see how calm she was, with people who get it. "I get your work," I said. "I don't get disappearing." She stared at me and I saw something hard settle behind her eyes. Then she delivered the sentence, "Not my partner, steady base, don't act like you get a vote." My chest felt tight, but my face stayed still. Years of dealing with angry contractors and panicked homeowners taught me a trick. Keep your voice low, keep your words few. Don't offer a reaction someone can use against you later. I said, "Okay." She blinked, "Okay." I nodded once, "Let me think." That line did two things. It ended the conversation without agreeing with her, and it bought me time to move without drama. Danielle scoffed like she'd won and walked past me into the bedroom. She shut the door a little too hard, but not hard enough to look guilty, just hard enough to feel powerful. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the tenant portal login tab on my laptop. Same password as always, same shared email as always. I didn't open her messages. I didn't dig through her social media. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't need to. The next morning, I went to work like it was a normal day. That's the strange thing about betrayal. You still have to answer emails. You still have to check a foundation pour. You still have to sign a form. Around 10, my phone buzzed. It was an email notification from our building manager. Subject line, "Lobby Incident, Request for Confirmation." It went to the shared email because both tenants were listed on the lease. The building did that with anything involving cameras, complaints, or official notices. It was part of their policy, everything in writing. I opened it because it was our shared building account, and the notification had popped up on my screen during a break. The email was polite and formal. The manager said a resident had reported a disturbance in the lobby around 1:40 a.m. the previous night. They said security cameras covered the entryway and they could preserve footage for a limited time. They asked if we were requesting a copy for our own records or if we wanted to provide a statement for their incident log. There was also a line that made my stomach drop. Two individuals were observed entering together. One appears to be Ms. Danielle Holloway. Please confirm. They weren't accusing her of a crime. They were doing building paperwork, but the fact that the manager was asking me to confirm told me everything I needed to know. Danielle hadn't just come home late. She'd come home late with someone, and it had been noticeable enough to bother a neighbor. I didn't reply right away. I took a screenshot of the email and saved it to my personal folder, not to smear her, just to protect myself. Then I called the building manager, during business hours, on speaker, at my office desk with my coworker Vince sitting nearby because I didn't want anything twisted later. I said, "This is Mark Caldwell in Unit 4B. I saw your email. Can you tell me what the incident was?" The manager said there was a complaint about raised voices and physical contact in the lobby. No one was harmed. We don't record audio, but the video shows enough that we needed to document it. I asked if I request the footage, what is the process? They explained it, written request, proof of residency. They would provide a time-stamped clip of the common area for that window per policy. No private hallways, no inside apartments, just the lobby, clean. I sent the written request from the shared email, because that's the account tied to our lease, and I forwarded the request to my personal email for my records. By late afternoon, the building manager sent a secure link, again to the shared email, again, formal process. When I opened it, I felt my face go hot, but my hands stayed steady. The clip showed Danielle at 1:43 a.m. coming through the front doors with a man I didn't recognize. They were close, not just walking next to each other. They were pressed together like a couple. At one point she turned her face up, and his hand was on the side of her neck. There was no doubt what kind of closeness it was. They paused near the mailboxes. He kissed her, not a quick peck, the kind of kiss you do when you think no one's watching. Then Danielle pulled back and looked straight toward the camera, like she could sense it. She smoothed her hair, laughed, and tugged him toward the elevator. That was it. No audio, no illegal recording, no snooping, just a lawful common area security clip provided through the building's normal channels. I closed my laptop and stared at my desk for a long time. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I felt something colder, clarity. After work, I went home and waited. I made dinner because I needed my hands busy, nothing fancy. Chicken, rice, frozen vegetables, normal food for a life that was about to change. Danielle came in around 8, cheerful, like the night before had been nothing. She kicked off her shoes and started telling me about a huge opportunity, like I was her teammate again. I let her talk. I waited until she sat down. Then I said, the building manager emailed about a lobby incident last night. Her smile flickered. What? I slid my laptop across the table, already open to the email. Not the video yet, just the manager's message. Paper first, facts first. Danielle's eyes scanned it fast. Why are they emailing you? They emailed the shared account, I said, both tenants. She swallowed, okay, and I requested the footage, I said, calm, through the building's policy. I have it. Her face changed, not guilt at first, anger. Like I'd broken a rule in her world where she gets to do whatever she wants and you don't get to see it. You went to the building manager, she snapped. Are you trying to embarrass me? I didn't do anything to you, I said. I asked for a clip the manager offered because our unit was involved. She leaned back and crossed her arms. This is exactly what I mean. You make everything an inspection. I clicked play, no sound, just images. Danielle watched for 2 seconds and then looked away like she'd been slapped. That's not, she started. I paused it. Don't, I said softly, just don't. Her eyes were bright now, but not with tears, with fury. It was nothing. It was after a client dinner. I had too much to drink. He walked me home, that's it. I asked, who is he? She hesitated, then said, his name is Tyler. He's in hospitality. He has connections. He knows people who spend money. There it was, the real truth, not romance, not confusion, strategy. I said, you brought him to our building. You kissed him in the lobby. Then you came upstairs and told me I'm your base. Danielle's mouth tightened. Then she did something that still surprises me. She didn't beg. She didn't apologize. She rationalized. Mark, you're acting like this is some crime, she said, voice low, like she was trying to sound mature. This is adult life. It's complicated. People have needs. People have goals. Your stability. Tyler is opportunity. I can't keep shrinking my life because you want a quiet routine. I stared at her and felt the last thread of hope snap cleanly. I asked one more question because I wanted to be sure. Do you want to stay in this relationship? She looked at me like the answer should be obvious. I want my life. I want support. I want to keep building. She didn't say she wanted me. She said she wanted support. I nodded once, okay. Her eyebrows rose. Okay. I said, I'm going to think about logistics and get back to you. She scoffed. Logistics, of course. I didn't argue. I stood up, washed my plate, and went to bed on my side like I always did, but I didn't sleep. I planned. The next morning, I made 2 calls during my lunch break. First, I called the leasing office, not to complain, just to ask the procedure for removing one person from a lease or ending it early. They gave me the options: a lease transfer if one person qualified, or a mutual early termination with a fee and written notice, everything by the book. Second, I called my sister, Tara. She's practical in a way that can sound mean if you don't know her. She listened without interrupting, then said, "You need a witness when you pack, and you need everything in writing." "I know," I said. "I'll come Saturday morning," she said. Daylight, no drama. That afternoon, I started the quiet work. I took photos of the apartment, room by room, not artistic, just documentation, furniture, electronics, kitchen items, any shared purchases. I opened a notes file and started an inventory list of what was mine, what was hers, and what was shared. I'd done enough property loss claims to know that memory turns unreliable when people get emotional. I also reviewed my autopay. There were a few things I covered because it was easier. A subscription for event planning software she used temporarily, a delivery service membership, a couple of streaming accounts, nothing huge but enough that it added up. I didn't cancel anything in a rage. I switched the payments so I wouldn't be funding her life after she'd told me I was just a base. For the shared utilities, I kept paying through the end of the month because my name was on them too, and I wasn't trying to create a mess. But the extras tied to her work and her personal convenience, I turned off and documented. Then I updated my emergency contact at work and my beneficiary information on my city benefits. Quiet, boring paperwork that feels harsh, but it's necessary. When a person shows you they don't respect you, you remove their access to your life. That night I sent Danielle one email, short, factual, no insults. I said I was ending the relationship. I said for the next steps, communication would be in writing only. I said I'd scheduled a leasing office meeting for Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. to discuss options, and I asked her to attend. I also said we could arrange a supervised pickup window for belongings once we had a plan, and that my sister would be present for any handoff to keep things calm. I sent it to her personal email and the shared building email, since it was tied to our lease. Paper trail, again. Danielle didn't reply for an hour. Then my phone started lighting up like a fire alarm. Calls, texts, voice messages. "Are you serious?" she wrote. "You're going to throw away 3 years because of a kiss." I didn't answer texts. I replied by email once, "Please keep communication in writing." That boundary made her furious because it took away her favorite weapon, which was emotional chaos. In chaos, she could talk fast and make you doubt yourself. In writing, she had to live with her words. Saturday morning, Tara came over at 10. She brought coffee and a tape measure, which made me laugh in spite of myself. "What's the tape measure for?" I asked. "If she claims you took something that doesn't fit in your car, I want to know," Tara said. "That's my sister." Danielle was out. She said she had a site visit. I didn't ask questions. I used the daylight like I'd planned. We packed my personal items first. Clothes, documents, work gear, tools, my grandfather's watch, the folder where I'd saved the building manager's email, the lobby clip link, and the leasing policy. Then we packed shared items only if they were clearly mine. A chair I'd bought before we moved in. My kitchen knives, because they were a gift from my mom, and I knew Danielle would use anything sentimental as leverage later. For everything else, I left it. I wasn't trying to strip the place bare. I wanted a clean break, not a battle over lamps. We took photos as we went, not because I wanted to win online, because I wanted proof of what left and what stayed. By noon, my car was loaded. Tara followed me to a storage unit I'd rented on the outskirts, near the kind of industrial strip where nobody cares what you're doing as long as you pay the bill. We unloaded in silence. On the way back, Tara said, "She's going to flip between anger and sadness. Don't react." "I won't," I said, and I meant it. Danielle's first reaction, when she realized I'd moved my things out, was disbelief. She burst into the apartment around 3, eyes wide, scanning like she expected me to jump out from behind the couch. "You actually left," she said, voice shaking. "You just left." I stood near the kitchen island, hands relaxed at my sides. Tara was sitting in a chair, silent, visible. "I'm not living here anymore," I said. Danielle looked at Tara like Tara was an insult. "Why is she here?" "As a witness," I said. Danielle's disbelief hardened into anger. "You're treating me like a criminal," she snapped. "This is insane. You're humiliating me." "I'm not humiliating you," I said. "I'm ending the relationship in a calm way." "You're not calm," Danielle said. "You're punishing me." I kept my voice even. "I'm setting boundaries." Then she tried bargaining fast. "Okay," she said, hands up. "Fine, maybe I crossed a line, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can set rules. I'll stop going out so much. I'll focus on us." She said it like she was offering a deal, not regret, and she didn't mention Tyler, not once. I said no. Her eyes narrowed. "No." "No," I repeated. She swallowed hard, and I could see the gears turning. Then she shifted into victim mode, like flipping a switch. "I gave you everything," she said, voice louder now. "I moved in with you. I built my life around you, and now you're abandoning me over one mistake." I didn't correct her math. I didn't argue about what she gave and what she took. I just said, "I'm not discussing feelings. The plan is in writing. Leasing office meeting Tuesday." Danielle's face twisted, and she lunged for another angle. "So what, you're going to tell everyone?" she demanded. "You're going to send that video around?" I shook my head. "No, that footage is for my records only." She stared at me like she wanted me to be cruel, like cruelty would prove her story that I was controlling. When I didn't give it to her, she looked unsettled. That night she left the apartment again. I didn't stop her. I didn't follow. I went to my new place, which at that point was still temporary, a small month-to-month studio I'd set up quickly. I sat on my mattress on the floor and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Quiet. Sunday afternoon, a mutual friend named Jenna forwarded me a screenshot from a group chat. Jenna had always been friendly to both of us, the type who tried to keep peace. Her message said, "I don't want drama, but you deserve to see this." The screenshot showed Danielle texting her circle. "He's freaking out," Danielle wrote. "He doesn't get the level I'm trying to reach. He's my safety net, but I need something exciting too. He'll calm down." There it was, safety net, calm down, like I was a child, like I was a resource. I didn't respond to the group chat. I didn't confront Danielle with it in person. I just added it to the folder. More paper, more proof, not for court, for sanity. Tuesday morning, we met at the leasing office, a little building with beige walls and a receptionist who looked tired of everyone's life choices. Danielle arrived dressed like she was going to a client meeting. Perfect hair, perfect lipstick. She smiled at the receptionist like charm could solve contracts. The leasing agent explained the options again. If one tenant wanted to stay, they had to qualify a loan. If not, both tenants could sign a mutual early termination agreement with a fee and a move-out timeline. Danielle tried to talk over the agent. "He's being emotional," she said with a laugh. "We just need a cooling-off period." The agent didn't laugh. "This is a legal agreement," she said. "It requires a decision." Danielle looked at me, eyes sharp. "You're really doing this?" I said yes. She tried bargaining again, right there in the office. "Mark," she said, voice softer now, "let's just finish the lease and talk later. We don't have to do something drastic." I said no. Her face tightened. "So you want me to pay that fee because you're mad?" "I'm paying my share," I said, fairly, in writing. The agent slid forms across the desk. Danielle's hand shook when she picked up the pen, not from heartbreak, from losing control. We agreed to a move-out date that gave both of us time. The lease termination was clean, timelines clear, payments documented, no illegal lockouts, no threats, just process. After the meeting, Danielle cornered me in the parking lot. "This is going to ruin me," she said, eyes wet now, real tears finally showing. "I can't handle all this at once." I didn't soften, I didn't harden, I stayed steady. "You'll figure it out," I said. She stared like she wanted me to say, "I'll save you." I didn't. Over the next 2 weeks, her reactions ran in predictable stages. She sent angry emails accusing me of being cold. Then she sent apologetic ones full of vague regret and no accountability. Then she sent long paragraphs about how I was afraid of growth. Then she tried to bait me with jealousy. "You know Tyler would never treat me like this," she wrote in one email. I replied with one line, "Please use email only for lease and belongings." That made her furious because I wouldn't fight. Fighting would have kept us connected. The final handoff happened on a Thursday at noon. Daylight. The building lobby had cameras. The manager knew we were doing a supervised move because I asked for permission to reserve the loading area and they sent it in writing. Everything above board. Tara came again, so did Danielle's cousin, a guy named Luke who looked uncomfortable just existing near conflict. I appreciated him anyway. A witness is a witness. Danielle arrived like she was walking into court. Sunglasses, tight jaw, big bag. She didn't speak to me at first. She spoke loudly to Luke about how crazy everything was, like she wanted the lobby to hear. I didn't engage. We walked upstairs. Danielle collected her things. I stayed in the living room, arms at my sides, not hovering. Tara sat at the kitchen table and watched the clock like she was timing a meeting. Danielle tried one last time when she carried her final box to the door. She paused and said quietly, "Now, so that's it. You're really going to be the guy who walks away." I met her eyes. I'm the guy who won't be used. Her face tightened. Then she shifted into that familiar tone, the one that tried to make everything sound rational and grown up. "You're going to regret being so rigid," she said. "Life doesn't work on rules." I said it works on respect. She opened her mouth like she wanted the last word. Then she stopped. Maybe because Tara was there. Maybe because the lobby camera was there. Maybe because she realized she couldn't turn this into a scene without looking like the problem. She left. When the door shut, the apartment felt empty in a clean way. Not lonely, clean. A few months passed. I moved into a different neighborhood, closer to my work, a smaller place with less noise. I built a routine that didn't depend on someone else's mood. I paid my bills. I cooked simple meals. I slept. I went on walks along the river when the weather warmed up. I stopped checking my phone for messages that weren't coming. Danielle tried twice to reopen contact, once with a long email about how she'd grown, another time with a short one that said, "We should talk like adults." I didn't respond. Adults don't need to reopen a closed file just to feel important. Then one weekday evening, I was at the Carnegie Library in Oakland. I'd gotten into the habit of picking up a book after work instead of sitting in my apartment staring at a screen. The library is quiet in a way that feels honest. Nobody is there to impress anyone. People are there to learn or to rest. I was in line at the checkout desk with 2 books in my hand when I heard my name. "Mark." I turned and there she was. Danielle looked different, not ruined, just less inflated. Her hair was pulled back, no dramatic makeup, a plain coat, a tote bag with a logo I didn't recognize. She looked like a person who had been forced to live without an audience for a while. For a second, I felt that old reflex to be polite, to smooth things over. Then I remembered the lobby video, the group chat screenshot, the line in the entryway about being the base. I kept my face calm. "Hi." She stepped closer, cautious now, like she wasn't sure what version of me she was going to get. "I didn't think I'd see you here." "I come here after work sometimes," I said. She nodded slowly. "That's nice." There was a pause. People behind us shifted in line. The librarian tapped something on the keyboard, waiting. Danielle took a breath. "I just want you to know I'm sorry for how I handled things." I didn't smile, I didn't scoff, I didn't punish her. I kept it simple. "I hope you're doing okay," I said. Her eyes searched my face for an opening, for warmth she could pull on, for anger she could use as proof of her victim story. She found neither. "You look good," she said, almost surprised. "I feel good," I said. Her mouth tightened in that familiar way, like she didn't like that answer. "So you're really done with me," she said, quiet. "Yes," I said. She swallowed hard and tried one last angle, soft and careful. "Maybe we could just talk sometime," she said. "No drama, just closure." I shook my head once. I already have closure. Danielle's eyes flashed, and for a moment I saw the old impatience. Then it faded. She looked tired. "Okay," she said. "Right." The librarian called my turn. I stepped forward, handed over my books, and gave my card. The beep of the scanner sounded like the simplest kind of victory. When I walked out into the cold evening air, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. I felt like a man who had protected his peace without making a spectacle. I used to think love meant absorbing someone else's chaos and calling it support. Now I understand something simpler. I stopped arguing with someone who needed me to stay small. Thanks for watching. What would you have done in my place? Tell me in the comments.